Good morning, Woodmont. Welcome to another edition of 9 at 9. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning. And I want to tell you a little story, a little personal story to get us started today. Back in March, on March 7th, my husband and I attended a school event for my older children's school, and it was our annual auction. This was like any other auction we had been to. We ate dinner. We got to hang out with a lot of our friends. We got to raise money for our very sweet school. And at the end of the night, we all went home and went our separate ways. Fast forward to the next week, this is when the coronavirus had just really started to make the news around Tennessee, or really even the United States. And we were starting to hear more and more about the impact of it in our area. Well, on Wednesday, March 11th, we received an email from our head of school that said one person who attended the auction had showed symptoms and did test positive for the virus. Over the next couple of days, we received more emails from our head of school letting us know that more people had tested positive within our school community, teachers and parents alike. And at the time, we really didn't know much about the virus, though we don't really know much more at this point, but it was a time of a bit of fear in our lives. A lot of my friends who were diagnosed with the virus had a range of symptoms, some of them worse than others. I was very worried about a lot of them for quite a while because they had such extreme symptoms and they seemed to go on for such a long period of time. There were friends of mine whose spouses ended up in the hospital, and it was devastating to hear that news. Now, as the story goes on, all of them have, thank God, recovered, and they are doing much better now. And here we are 7 weeks later. I wanted to share with you a little bit about what I have learned out of this, not only from what happened within our community at my children's school, but also just in general, and what I feel I have really learned out of this whole experience. The first thing for me is that emotion is real. Now, as an Enneagram 8, I am very much going to a place of anger in a lot of ways. I get angry about, why did this happen? Why did this happen to my children's school? Why did we all get infected? And why were we all around this virus? Why did it infect us and infect our community? I've also had lots of sadness. I look at my two older children who were now distance learning and who are not happy doing that. They want to be at school. They're 6 and almost 9 years old, and they want to be at school. They want to be socializing with their friends. I never thought I would hear them say that they wanted to wake up at 6 a.m. and walk out the door and head to school. But here we are, and this is something new for them. And so as a parent, I have extreme sadness and guilt over the fact that they can't do those things right now, that it is something that is out of my control completely. But I've also had times of happiness. And I think for me, it's very weird to feel happiness when there are so many devastating things out of this, that children are missing school, that families are not together. I myself am having to stay clear of my mother who has immune deficiencies. And that's heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking for my children to not be able to be around their grandmother. But in all of this, and in all of these emotions that we have, all of those emotions are valid. It doesn't matter if you feel happy one day, if you're angry one day, if you're sad one day, if you're joyful one day, or if you're simply content with being inside and being a part of the social distancing that we've all been told to do. It's okay to have every single one of those feelings because it's who we are and it's how God made us to be. The second thing for me is that out of this has come such a love and a kindness and a compassion that we have for one another. I get all of the 9 at 9s. I see messages from friends and from families. I have children's families from our church who are reaching out to me to check on me and see if I'm okay, when really it's my job to reach out to them and to talk with them. How are your children doing? And it, to me, just signifies the fact that we as a congregation have that love and that kindness and that compassion for one another. Same as we do at my children's school. We all care for one another and we come to each other's aid when there are times of trouble. The third thing is, and I think that this is probably something that most of us have realized, and we've known it for a long time before this, but you really don't realize the goodness until it's gone. We go through the motions every single day, especially me with young children. All of my children have different schedules and there's activities and all these busy things that keep us going in life. I look back at the pictures from that night of the auction that I attended and I think, wow, what happened that night transformed the next 7 weeks, not only in that community, but in the world and in the United States. We don't really know and see what's happening and what we could lose in the blink of an eye. But in that same thing, what have we gained from this time? What have we gained from being at home and being with our families and really getting to know them? I know that I have a wild and crazy 2-year-old who is one of the sweetest children, but he is every bit of a 2-year-old. And I've gained that insight because I've been busy, I've been working. He goes to school 5 days a week. He is with his friends 5 days a week. And in the busyness of life, I haven't truly gotten to know him as well as I did my other 2 children as rambunctious 2-year-olds. So I'm grateful and thankful for that. And the fourth thing is community. We know that Woodmont, my children's school, it is a tight-knit community. When I think of Woodmont, I think of love. I think of family. I think of always being there for one another through thick and through thin, through all the rough times, through the happy times. As someone who grew up at Woodmont, I know the impact that this congregation has on each other. I know the lifelong friendships that I've developed because of my time at Woodmont. And the community built there is just inspiring. The fact that, as I said earlier, that we are reaching out to one another, that we are growing closer to one another in this time is quite unbelievable. You would think that at this time we are being torn apart. We are not together physically, and I'm a very physical person. I love being around people. I love being in groups. I'm a very social extrovert, but it's reminded me that even though we are social distanced, that we can be closer than ever in this moment and in this time. I wanted to share with you in closing, one of my dear friends from my children's school, she is also a 3rd grade mom. She shared this quote with us that was laid on her heart toward the very beginning of this, and I wanted to share it with you as a sort of prayer and in our closing today. And her name is Katie Messner. Coronavirus is literally translated crown virus. The enemy would like us to give this virus regal authority to frighten and take us down, but only Jesus is king in the earth. Even if the virus temporarily affects our health and finances, we belong to another king and an eternal king. In God's always present kingdom and economy, there is more than enough to give and sustain. There is joy, fearlessness, courage, abundance, hope, and most of all, love. We have the opportunity in this day to reflect our true citizenship, which will ultimately glorify the loving heart of our God to those in the earth. Don't be intimidated by this virus wearing a pretend crown. Instead, hear God saying, "Crown me today. Abide in me each minute. I will reassure you, I will be your rock. I am." Amen.